Now, Nigeria's anti-corruption drive is once again in the spotlight following court-ordered final forfeiture of properties linked to former Attorney General Abubakar Malami, businesswoman Aisha Achimugu, and former Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele. The decisions have sparked fresh debate over asset recovery, due process, and whether recovered wealth is truly benefiting Nigerians. Today on Standpoint, we examine what these landmark rulings mean for accountability, the rule of law, and the fight against corruption. I am Precious Amayo. Thanks for joining us. The recovery of assets suspected to be proceeds of crime has become one of the most prominent features of Nigeria's anti-corruption campaign. Rather than waiting for criminal trials to conclude, anti-graft agencies increasingly rely on civil forfeiture proceedings to secure court orders transferring ownership of disputed assets to the federal government. Now, that approach has returned to the spotlight following separate court judgments ordering the final forfeiture of properties linked to former Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, businesswoman Aisha Achimugu, and former Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele. The assets include luxury homes, cash, and other high-value properties alleged by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission to be proceeds of unlawful activities. While the EFCC has described the rulings as major victories in the fight against corruption, the cases have also generated legal and public debate. Questions remain over due process, the distinction between civil forfeiture and criminal conviction, the transparency surrounding the management of recovered assets. Today, we move beyond the headlines to examine what these court decisions mean for the rule of law, public accountability, and whether Nigeria's assets recovery framework is achieving its intended purpose in the fight against corruption. Joining us to unpack the legal and constitutional implications of these court order forfeitures is Fred Nziako, a lawyer with extensive experience in legal practice and public policy. Mr. Nziako, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good to be with you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I just, this week has been, or the past couple of days has been days of final forfeiture, beginning from Malami, and then we thought that was it. We saw Aisha Achimugu, and then just yesterday, one of the former Central Bank Governor also broke as well. I want to get your reaction to this high-profile forfeitures and where it stands in our fight against corruption.
Yes, my immediate reaction is to congratulate the EFCC for the success achieved in ensuring that these assets that are suspicious assets and proceeds are said to be proceeds of corruption and corrupt practices are forfeited to the federal government of Nigeria. I want to congratulate the EFCC on that, and I want to encourage the EFCC not to be selective in their choice of which assets to attack and which personalities to be brought to book. There are so many politically exposed persons whose proceeds of whose assets are suspected to be proceeds of corruption and who are still walking free and even on some of them in the corridors of power. So while we congratulate the FCC for this humongous achievement, we want to use this opportunity to encourage the anti-corruption agency to go deeper and not to fear anybody and not to mind anybody whose ox is God. Because even if it means stepping on the toes of powerful people, they have the mandate of the people and the authority of the laws and the constitution of Nigeria to go spread deeper and ensure that all these filthy lucre, all these filthy assets are recovered for the benefit of the country and for the benefit of the people of Nigeria. Some of these assets, they have been cornered from the states, some of them cornered from the federal level, and it is important that any state that has lost valuable assets and wealth to state officials should be recovered, and anyone that has lost assets to federal government should be recovered back to the seal of the of my opening remark. I congratulate the FCC for the success, and I want to give kudos to the judiciary for the boldness it's exhibited in this regard.
So, Mr. Nzeko, I will get back to your comments on whether or not you think the EFCC is cherry-picking or anti-graft agencies are cherry-picking on the cases they want to, to prosecute. But let's get back. Just before that break, I was asking you about the conversations or reactions that people are having to some of these rulings or order that, look, you need to have, when it comes to criminal justice process, you must have conviction before you have recovery. But we know that there is the Proceeds of Crime Recovery and Management Act. So I wanted to sort of speak to that.
The Proceeds of Recovery Act positions in a way that conviction must not be concluded before recovery is done. The whole idea is to offer the state some form of restitution. Because the process of conviction requires full criminal adjudication, in which case the prosecution must prove its case beyond all reasonable doubt. The process of recovery, an accused has wrongly, illegally, or illegitimately put his hand in the cookie jar, the process of restitution will be initiated so that the recovery can be processed and be concluded. Meanwhile, the process of conviction can keep moving, because that takes quite some time and it comes with a lot of technicalities. So this follows international best practices with respect to recovery of assets, especially from people that are politically exposed. And the EFCC has made very good example and very good success out of this procedure. And Nigerians are really very glad about it. And like I said earlier, we want the EFCC to throttle down and go into a very serious process of recovery of assets from everybody that has funds. And because we cannot claim to be a developing country, we cannot claim to be in want of resources when the little one that we have are illegally misappropriated. Nigeria cannot be borrowing money from every part of the world only for the money to be relooted by people who have been given authority and the trust to handle the affairs of the country. Anybody whose hand is found in the cookie jar, such hands should be cut off and such assets should be recovered. So this is one process and one procedure that will not only bring restitution to the system, but will also serve as deterrent to those who may want to follow the same route of looting of public assets. If anybody is not interested in serving the public, the fellow should not make himself available for service. Because it is not compulsory. If you just give me, once you are ready to serve the public, yes.
Just give me a minute, because you mentioned the deterrence effect of this, and that's what people are also wondering about, if this does have any of such effect when it is just recovery, and sometimes we don't necessarily see conviction. In some cases, once you get the assets back, the cases can take years, and people have moved on and even forgotten that those cases even exist in the first place. And so I'm wondering if recovery alone can serve as deterrence without proper conviction.
Recovery should be a precursor. It should be a harbinger. It should be a forerunner to conviction. Conviction should come after recovery. Both should be served, and both should be diligently pursued. We shouldn't stop at recovery, because like I agree with you that recovery alone will not serve the necessary deterrent that is required. But both recovery and conviction should combine to serve as such deterrent, because a recovery will mean disposition of the properties, but conviction will mean that the person will physically be sanctioned. The person will possibly go to prison, serve his prison sentences the way and manner it is pronounced by the court, and that is personal, that is physical, and that is the one that will make sure that that person will not even dream of trying to repeat such crime, and others will learn a very deep lesson from there. So we advocate for both the recovery of assets and the complete conviction of the offenders, of the felons.
And so you also talked about the idea that if anyone's hand is found in a cookie jar, that hand should be cut off. But, you know, people are saying, look, we shouldn't just wait till a hand is in the cookie jar. How about we have a mechanism? Because we have some mastered reaction in this country. We know how to react to everything, but not necessarily proactive measures. And so that perhaps we should even ensure that that cookie jar is protected enough that you can't even get to it, and that the mechanisms that the mechanism we put in place should even deter you from even going to the cookie jar in the first place.
That the filthy hand is not even put in the cookie jar in the first instance. So the Public Procurement Act, the laws are there, the regulations and the bylaws are there, the acts are there, but they are observed in breach. The Public Procurement Act should be enhanced, and we ensure that it is respected. The whistleblowers policy must be revived, because I keep saying and I keep maintaining that it takes more than two to tango. No public officer can embrace for alone. There must be at least one or two others also that must be involved. So we should not only look in the direction of the public sector, we should also look in the direction of the private sector, because the Money Laundering Act and the Bankers Act are not enough to deter public officers from ensuring that they play by the rules. We have to also beam our satellite to the banking sector. The banks are supposed also blow the whistle when they see untoward attitude. Bankers themselves are part and parcel of the collaboration. They are part and parcel. They don't blow the whistle.
So, Zeko, we're having challenge with your network again. I want to confirm that you can still hear me. If not, we'll have to take another break to try and reconnect with you. Mr. Zeko, are you still there?
Reactive. So while we follow the reactive aspect by ensuring that those who put their hand in the cookie jar up.
All right, so we would have to take a break just to reconnect with Mr. Zeko. He seems to be having very shaky network, you know, at his end. We'll take a break now and return with a standpoint in just a moment. Stay with us, everyone. All right, thanks for staying with us, everyone. We're looking at final forfeiture of order given on 3 different cases in the country in the last couple of days. High-profile cases. When you put all of the monies together, we're talking about, and the properties, we're talking trillions of naira probably. We're speaking with Fred Nziako, a lawyer with extensive experience in legal practice and public policy. Thank you so much for staying with us.
Thanks, many thanks.
All right, so when you look, I was just saying, you know, a few seconds ago that when you look at all of the monies and property, the valuation of the property we're talking about, some of them in very highbrow areas in the country, whether it's Abuja, whether it's Lagos, you find that these monies, probably when you put all of the valuations together, we're looking at trillions of naira. And we're just talking about not even being able to put your hand in the cookie jar. I mean, what sort of public service or what sort of mechanism can we put in place? So, because, I mean, these are really huge amounts of money to ensure that people cannot even touch that cookie jar in the first place. Mr. Zeko, just to be sure that you can hear me, his network is really poor today. Mr. Zeko, are you there?
Yeah, can you kindly come again? I didn't hear you
Yeah,
properly.
so I was saying that when you look at when you put on, I mean, between these three individuals, when you put all of the monies that have been allegedly, or rather, not, I don't want to use the word allegedly stolen and recovered rather by the EFCC, you realize that it's probably up to trillions of naira when you add the valuation of property. That's a lot within three people. And so I'm wondering, because we're still talking about that cookie jar you mentioned, how we deter people for not even taking, I mean, it's huge amounts of money. This is really too much for just three individuals. How do we ensure that we do not have a repetition of these kind of cases? Mr. Ziako, can you hear me?
So much. The money lost by government is so huge. Like you said, it runs into trillions of naira. A lot of these funds are spent on unnecessary luxuries that are inanity. Can you imagine in the case of Achimugu, we're talking about over 4 billion naira in jewelries. These are mere inanities. We're talking about over 4.5 billion naira in luxury cars. These are mere senseless inanities. And you are looking at people accumulating wealth in terms of Malami. We're looking at over 48 houses, properties. And you begin to ask, what is a man going to do with all those primitive accumulation of wealth? Look at Mr. Emefiele's own, where he owns an estate that runs and contains over 700 duplexes. You are not talking about the money in the banks and the rest of them. Meanwhile, these are men and women that do not even have single charity foundation to touch the lives of the poor. And you begin to ask, why would Nigerians and those who are called Nigerian leaders want to enrich themselves so primitively that they even acquire what they don't need, and what even their generations don't need, whereas their citizens are wallowing in abject poverty? A country with over 136 million people living in multidimensional poverty is the same country where single individuals enrich themselves from the state coffers in multiple trillions of naira. I think it is not just a sign of psychological problem on the part of the leaders who are accused of such a misappropriation and such stealing of public funds, but it also calls to attention the fact that something must be done to ensure that that is stopped. And that is why we continue to encourage the EFCC, the ICPC, and all law enforcement agencies, the police and the rest of them, to ensure that
Mr. Zeko, if I can quickly come in, just because of time.
There are many state governors, former governors that are involved in this type of massive corruption that are that, because before the law, every man is equal before the law.
And when it comes to the law, because you mentioned the law, Mr. Zeko, if you can hear me, just give me a minute.
When people are entrusted with
Mr. Zeko, I have a few minutes left, just a few minutes or seconds left. I wanted to ask you, because also in the eyes of the law, there is a presumption of innocence until proven guilty. We also have to say that they have not been convicted. This is just forfeiture. And for someone like Malami, who is running for office in Kebbi State under the ADC, I'm wondering what should happen now, although he's still innocent until proven guilty, and then what should also happen, the transparency that we should see in terms of how these proceeds of crime have been, or alleged crime, are also being used, or allocated by the EFCC.
Anybody who cannot explain the source of wealth must be questioned, whether the person is running for office or forfeiture is important if we ignore the fact that public office holders must be responsible and must be accountable for their actions. We don't want to be involved in the political undertone that is involved, even though we know that there are many of them. And that is why we ask that even those who are standing on the current mandate must be investigated and be brought to book, irrespective of the party they belong to and the society that they profess. Everybody that has served Nigeria or is serving Nigeria at any level, state, local, and federal government, must be responsible and accountable to the people. And anybody who is found his hand in the cookie jar must be asked to relinquish that cookie jar, and then restitution must be brought to the people by way of recovery of assets and the conviction by the courts.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. We have very limited time for this kind of conversation. It could take hours. Thank you very much, Mr. Fred Nziako, a legal practitioner and lawyer of legal practice with so much experience in legal practice and public policy. Thank you for your time, Fred Nziako.
Many thanks.
All right, that's Standpoint this week. Remember, you can watch the repeat broadcast at 11 p.m. tonight and 5 a.m. on Sunday. Thanks for watching. I am Precious Amayo.